Boys in the back, listen up. Okay, so I just want to kind of recap some of the things you noticed when we were looking at our magnets. So when we have our little magnets here, some of them are labeled, some of them are not labeled. I should have gone through with a marker and labeled all of them again. But we have north and we have south. That's how we indicate magnets. Now you guys should have had a chance to play with those magnets and made some observations. The first observation is using a mixture. All right, can we look up? So what we noticed in this little petri dish is that you have a mixture of sand and some iron filings, and we put the magnet next to it. It's able to connect some of the items. Not all of the items, just the iron, right? So if we're thinking about that success criteria, we're making some observations about what is and is not magnetic. So the iron filings are magnetic, the sand is not. So it's not everything that's magnetic. The other thing we can also observe, you see how I'm using the end of the magnet to pick things up? We can try other locations, like in the middle. Now, do you think the middle is as strong? Is it reacting as much? Not as much. So the ends are probably our strongest points of our magnets. What else did I want to make observations on? Oh, so we know iron's a metal, but are all metals magnetic? No. So here's an example. I have a silver ring. Do we think the silver ring's going to attract? No. So very specific what is and is not magnetic. All right. Other thing we observed is looking at the poles and looking how magnets interact with each other. So I'm going to put opposite poles next to each other. We have the north and the south. And what's going to happen?
They're not gonna work. They're gonna work. No,
What are they going to do?
they're gonna show you hot.
You think they're going to move away?
They're going real hot.
Moves together. All right, let's do the other side. So we have north and north.
Let's go do this. It's gonna float. It's gonna float. Oh, mine was gonna.
It's not gonna
float.
connect.
Not going to connect?
Not gonna connect.
Oh, it's not working very well. Didn't shove it very well.
Yeah, this. Yeah.
There we go. So we see how it's shoving it away. Yeah? All right. And you guys would have felt that magnetic force too, because when you're putting the magnets, you're trying to force certain areas of the magnet together. It doesn't like that. So our next activity, I want to make sure you guys have understood that material. So if you look at our to-do list, we have the do now. Now we have an exploring magnet worksheet. Now I have two different worksheets. You do not need to do both. You are only doing one, and I'm going to let you guys choose which one you want to do. I'll put both of them up on my table, and you can come up and grab whichever one you want. This one here has more images, and it's a bit more scaffolded, because it's fill in the blank. This one here is more open-ended, so you then have to kind of create your answer. So it's your choice which one you want to do. I will go over the answers once you guys have this done, but this is one of our tasks for our engagement for this lesson. So I'll put that on that front table over there, and I'll put our instructions back on the board. So what we are doing next is picking one of the two exploring magnet worksheets to recap the observations. Cool? All right. All right. I'm going to go over the answers, so can we close our devices? Like I said, there's no lessons that need devices today. So those need to be closed. All right, let's go over the answers. Now I'm going over the answers to the scaffolded worksheet, but the answers are similar to the unscaffolded one because it's the same kind of material. So, with the scaffolded one, we're talking about filling in those blanks with the word bank. So magnets have two, and if I'm looking at that list, poles. One pole is called the south, and the other one's the north. I'm not fussed which one you put first. And that's just like our planet Earth. Our planet Earth is also a giant magnet because we have an iron core. And that's how we have our north and south poles. And that's how the compasses work. All right. When opposite poles are near each other, they blank together. Pull together. This means that the two poles attract. All right. When two of the same poles are near each other, they blank away from each other. Push. This means that the two poles repel. And we used up all of our words. All right. Next here are our diagrams. So we're trying to show what's happening with the forces. And if you guys remember when we did Wide World of Sports, we did talk about forces. So we have two north poles. So they're the two same poles. What's going to happen?
They're gonna move away.
They're going to move away. So we're going to draw arrows showing that they're pushing away from each other. All right. This one here, we have two different poles next to each other.
What were we supposed to do like that?
Pull each other up.
Either way to show that, they're pulling together or pushing away. So in this case, pull together. So that's going to pull through. All right. So now we know how these magnets are working. All right. Next task. Yeah? Okay. All right. Looking up, everybody. All right, looking up so that way you understand the next instructions. All right, first thing we are going to be doing is we're just going to use one magnet, and you're going to take your piece of paper and we're going to put the piece of paper over our magnet. Okay? So just a recycled piece of paper. And the reason why we're doing this is so that way we can see the magnetic field. In a moment, what I'm going to do is give you guys some iron filings, and we are going to sprinkle it on top like you're sprinkling salt or pepper. And what we're going to be able to do... No, it's not pepper, it's iron filings. We're going to sprinkle it on top, and we're going to look to see what the pattern's going on there, because we're trying to see the magnetic fields. The magnetic fields are something we can't see, so that's why we need to use the iron filings. All right, I'll pass those out so you guys can do some sprinkling. Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. Can we stop? Look up. All right, I'm just going to add some more iron filings so we can kind of see the pattern a bit better.
No, I'm serious. If you really have a fight, you just should look the other way. Yeah.
All right.
He's a little bit freaking out over this fight.
All right, so when we are looking at our image, we should see that our magnet's about right here, yeah? And we should see this curved line going from one pole to the other pole.
Hey, that's not what happened.
Well, try it again. Put the one magnet down and sprinkle. Not pour, sprinkle. What you should also notice is that we have a couple of straight lines going out. Yeah? So let's draw the magnetic field that we saw. So I'm just going to try to lift this up and try not to disrupt it too much. Okay, disrupt it a little bit. All right. So let's draw in our notebooks what we saw for the magnetic field. So I have my magnet. One is labeled north, one is labeled south. So make sure we're writing this down in our notebooks. And what we noticed pattern-wise is we had these kind of like loops. And we also had some lines that were coming out at the edges as well. So it's kind of looking like that.
Mine was just looking like an echo shape as the echo.
So that's what we should have written down in our notes for our first observation with the filings. Yeah? All right. Something to note about magnetic fields is the direction of that field. So magnetic fields go from north to south. So I'm going to add some arrows to show that it's going from north to south. On the north side, those arrows are going out. And on the south side, those arrows are going in. Because we know they're going north to south.
Yes.
So that's our first observation. I'll leave that up. I'm just going to tidy up my iron filings, and we're going to then do the next combination. Okay. So the next thing I want us to test out then is aligning our poles. So looking at this picture here, we had north and north together. So what I want you guys to do is we're going to put our two magnets together, and we're going to put the north side next to the north side. So we're going to do the same thing that we did in our last experiment. We are going to be looking, we're going to have our north end of the magnet and the other north end of the magnet pointing towards each other. And I want to make sure that I'm experiencing that repulsion. And the same thing you're going to do again. You're going to put the piece of paper over it, and you're going to sprinkle being the key word, the iron filings on top. And we're going to see what the pattern looks like again. All right? Good to go?
Yes.
So, to recap, put the magnets down. We want north facing north. We're going to put the piece of paper over it, and we're going to sprinkle the iron filings to see what the pattern looks like.
It's gonna go haywire.
Alrighty. So, just to recap, I have placed my two magnets down. I have north to north facing each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle on top, again, the iron filings. So we can see the outlines of the magnets right now. We can see the little loops that we talked about before. But what do you guys notice happening between those two magnets?
They're making a line. They're making the frog. Oh,
It's really hard for me to get some.
There's a gap.
There's a gap.
There's a gap in the middle.
Yeah? Which makes sense because those two magnets were repelling from each other, weren't they?
Yeah.
So if I was to draw that, just gonna move this guy up. So if I go back to my notes so we can draw our observations, what we see happening is we see the loops happening, but in this case, these two north ends are repelling against each other and forming a gap. So we still have our loops going north to south. Like that. So things are still going into the south. The north is still showing that's pointing away. But the main thing we're noticing is that this time around we have a gap, and that's causing that repulsion. Yeah? So that's causing that push and that repel that we saw in our worksheet. So now we understand why these magnets were trying to push away from each other. Because those magnetic fields are bumping heads. All right, the last one I want you guys to do with the iron filings then is going to be I'm just trying to grab another color, the opposite ends towards each other. So we want to have a south to north. So that way we have the opposite poles aligning. So same thing you guys are going to do before. You are putting down your two magnets, but this case we're looking for south and north. We should be able to feel that they're pulling together. And then again, putting that piece of paper over them and sprinkling the iron filing on top. Okay? Yep. So let's do that one and see what happens with those magnetic fields. Cool. Alrighty. So let's grab my piece of paper. So in this case, I have my north and my south together. So I have my two opposite poles on my table. I'm gonna put the white piece of paper over it, and once again, we are playing sprinkle the iron.
Yep, sprinkle.
I know, lots of sprinkling. So I like to sprinkle it over the magnets just so I can see where the magnets are. And then I kind of sprinkle it around to get the rest of it. All right, so we see the pattern's different, isn't it? What do we notice about the center?
And it's squares. Oh.
The iron has connected together, whereas in the other case, it was empty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so that shows us that we have the north and the south magnetic kind of connecting together.
Yeah.
So let's draw what we see. All right, so here are my magnets. The main thing that I notice is different is that we see that there's lines connecting our north and south together. Now remember, they go from the north direction to the south direction, so I'm drawing my arrows in that way. And then I should also see kind of this loop. And I should also be seeing this loop. So we see a couple of loops. So that's what we're looking at. Oops. Yeah, that way. Cool. So that's what we should have as our third image. Okay. Once you have that image drawn, you can put your iron filings back into your container. We're going to hold on to the magnets because there's one more thing I want to show you because we have some extra time. Okay? Well, we can go ahead and start packing up once you have that written down. We have 15 minutes left, so I'm going to do another activity with you guys because we have some extra time. We still need the magnets, though. I'll leave that up so you guys can make sure you have your notes down.